Hi, welcome to Numbers Don't Lie, the sales and marketing truth for accountants. I'm Brad Pinzer.
And I'm Janelle Sikora. And we are so happy to be here today. This is a lot of fun for us. And so, a question, Brad, what number are we talking about today?
Well, today we're talking about number one.
Ooh, that could go a lot of different directions. So, what do you mean by number one?
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking, what's the number one problem our clients are facing right now? And what I'm thinking about that is, recently we've brought on a few clients, some smaller firms, and what I'm noticing is that they're struggling with tech.
Hmm.
They're basically having all kinds of issues, whether it's issues with their Google business profile and their website performance, things like that, and they're struggling to figure out how to resolve those issues because it's above their head. Naturally, that's not their lane, and they're reaching out to you know Google and whoever their tech provider is right now, and they're not really making any traction. They're spinning the wheels. They're spending a lot of back and forth, and they don't know how to ask the right questions. It's not their fault, and then the people on the other side, they're just not, um, you know, either capable or willing to take the extra steps to just get them out of kind of the situation that they're in, and it's really holding them back from moving forward and doing all the other things that they want to do. And
Hmm.
so I think that is really a huge problem, number one problem I see.
Yeah, I would agree. It's kind of like I wish there was somebody like us to help when I have to sit on the phone and call an insurance company and I have no idea where to turn or how to get things done. So I completely feel the frustration that our clients feel when they're just trying to figure out, why is nobody visiting my website? How do I get people to engage with me? What the heck is this Google business profile? How do I even claim it? What do you mean optimize it? What's it do? What should I be doing on there? It's got to be so overwhelming because we work with accountants and accountants don't want to deal with any of that stuff. They want to do what they do best, which is solve problems for their clients, right? So I understand the frustration there, and I think if there was, as we talk to customers, there tends to be kind of that one piece of advice, which is, okay, wait, let's take a breath. Let's start. We can break this down for you. Let's start with what the key priority is, which is, why don't we take a look at your website and see how well it's optimized, how well it's optimized technically for the performance. But another thing that we see as a common denominator, I know that you and I have talked about, is, when you bring clients into a conversation and pull them into your sales process, every sales process starts with a conversation. Every single one, almost. And it could be an online conversation, it could be a live conversation, whatever, but they all start with a conversation of some sort. And you've got to have a really easy way for clients to start that conversation. And what we see out there, one of the things that once we help them get their website optimized for performance, et cetera, then it's okay. Let's look at the the classic contact us page, and usually about 99% of the time, it's fill out this form and we'll get back to you. And what's so interesting is, in today's day and age, we have this sense of expecting immediate gratification. And I don't want to fill out a form and hope someone's going to get back to me. I want to click a button and engage with them. And so there's so many different options now for engaging right off the bat, like completely removing all friction from the conversation. You could set up a calendar booking link. You could set up a web chat. You could allow for a number that allows people to text you. And this small thing is a really smart way to draw people into a conversation where you're removing all the friction. They're not going to have to wait for an email when you have time to get back to them. So I think that that's really an important part of kind of, where do I start? Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think providing all of those options is critical. also think taking it a step further in setting the expectations at each point along the way, so people understand, what do they have to do right now, and what's going to happen after they do that, so
Hmm.
that you're setting them up, you're priming them for the next step, and
Yeah.
it's critical that you deliver each step of the way, and provide um, you know that communication channel, the follow up, the whole thing that's needed, to complete, you know that
Hmm.
journey for your prospect.
And kind of back to the website, like we were talking about, you raise a good point because once you pull someone into that front end of your sales process, which is always a conversation, you also have to be really diligent about helping them understand what happens next. Like you said, what's the process? How do I do business? What does that look like? Because if you don't lay that out for someone, then you leave it up to their own interpretation. And most people don't necessarily understand what accountants do or bookkeepers do or business advisors do. And it sounds complex and it sounds scary. So I think it's really, really important to be able to, on your website, explain this is how the process works. And oh, by the way, these are the next steps.
Absolutely. I mean, it's with any business. You have to you have to tell them how they do business with you. How does it
Mhm.
work? You're the expert. You're the one that needs to tell them how you do business. You don't want them to dictate to you how it's going to go down. So if you don't if you don't dictate it on your end, then they're going to dictate it. So it's one or the other. So you need to choose to do that. And there's certain kind of best practices on how to lay that out, and that's critical.
Kind of all comes back to what we talk about all the time is messaging, right? Like it all comes back to messaging, setting expectations, just being such a crystal clear communicator.
Hmm.
And accountants are so smart and their brains work faster than most of the population. And sometimes accountants can easily think that clients are mind readers and they're not. So sometimes it's really helpful too, just to take a step back and be able to clearly explain um, here's how we work together, or set expectations so clearly even when you assume the client knows what's coming next. But I digress because we're getting a little ways away from the website.
Yeah, but just to put on that point there, to add to it, excuse me, you really you have to be explicit, and it's kind of a strange thing, because you think, well, people should understand, even the simplest things, but they need to have very explicit instructions on what to do. And I mean, as simple as, like, if you were going to make grilled cheese in the toaster, right? Just throw the bread in there, put the cheese on, like, turn it on. Like, seems like it's pretty easy, but you know, if you're not explicit, they might put in, the bread in instead of flat, upside down, and the cheese spreads and spills over and makes a mess. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's like you would think that people would know how to do it properly, but unless you're explicit, they'll find every which way to do it completely the way you did not intend it to be. It's
Hmm.
just the nature of how things are.
So to kind of circle it back, if you're listening and you're a firm who is just overwhelmed with the whole concept of marketing and sales, first I would tell you that it's essential to have some level of knowledge in that right now, because it used to be where business would just walk through your front door. And it isn't quite that way anymore because businesses want something different than just having their tax return done or their books done, right? So you have to do, some level of marketing, and you have to have a good sales process. So obviously some of the key ways that we do that online are with a website and with a Google business profile. So if you're an accounting firm owner out there or bookkeeping firm owner who has struggled with this, like many of our clients have, and you're so frustrated and you don't know which way to turn and you don't want to have to deal with it, the first place to start is making sure that your website is optimized for good performance, right? You want to be in a position where people can actually find you online. You want to have a really good, compelling message on that website. And it's very, very important, as important to make sure that you've claimed your Google business profile and that you've optimized that profile strength so that it's good and that you continue to post new content to that. Same thing with your website. If your website's stale and you haven't touched it in 9 years, it's buried so far down in Google, it would be very difficult to find unless someone had the exact URL. So it's important to keep that updated as well. And, those are the two places to start. And then taking the friction out of the process, that first step in the sales process.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we're talking about the performance of your website and that optimization, we're really talking about even before you do like SEO, for instance, right? It's
Exactly.
really about, your website basically is words and images and video and a bunch of other kind of resources that are all combined into like one page. And all of that stuff takes up bandwidth, right? So
Mhm.
if those assets that you have on your page aren't optimized, then your page, the performance of your page, just from a technical standpoint, can be very poor. Can not load quick enough, things like that. Google recognizes that just automatically through its algorithm, and that's just one of the factors that goes into how the potential of your website's visibility in Google and the search engines. So you really want to kind of make sure that that's taken care of before you even get into doing an SEO campaign, for instance, or any type of marketing. And
Mhm.
so a lot of times when we work with clients, when we first or engage with them, there's issues like that with their website. So we have tons of experience on how to fix those issues so that that part is performing well. And then of course resolving any issues with your Google business profile. For instance, we've had clients come to us and they have this big red banner on theirs that says permanently closed, and they have no idea how that happened. And you know, and then they have issues with their address and verification and so on and so
Mhm.
forth. And it's back and forth with Google, and very frustrating. So those are the types of things that we're talking about. It's like a cleanup.
Yeah, that's
We
like the
clean that,
first thing you
yeah.
have to do.
We
Yeah.
clean that up. We make sure all of that stuff's working well, and then really we like to get into the whole messaging part and
Yeah.
working on that kind of stuff. But it really, unless you're got some of those other things cleaned up and in order, you could have the greatest message in the world, but if people aren't able to, hear it or see it or
Mhm.
read about it, then it doesn't help you. So that's why we like to start with the tech. A lot of times, sometimes
Yeah.
it's not needed, but when it is, we're well equipped to handle that.
And in addition to starting with the tech, then the next thing, even before we get into the messaging, is making sure that there's that super easy way for prospective clients to engage and get into the process. So, a lot of times that is, setting up some sort of a booking engine for them on their website, which then removes all of that old fashioned, fill out this form and we'll get back to you. And people are more apt to engage if they know they're going to either be able to book directly on someone's calendar, or if they know that they're able to walk into like a live chat or text the client as well. So those are things that you can just do right away and um, see some differences, see some results, and then get into the messaging and then get into the fancier stuff. Because I know it can feel overwhelming. It would probably feels as overwhelming as if you handed me some big corporate return, tax return, and said, "Hey, go do this," and my head would spin off my shoulders because I wouldn't even know where to start. So I get the frustration and the
Right. I mean, going to our point of the topic of like number one today, right? Like, so
Mhm.
that's also like a really big problem, like where to start, right? Because there's so much that you can do when it
Yeah.
comes to marketing your practice, and so like we said, technical side, anything that's a roadblock, you have to fix. But also there's some kind of low hanging fruit that can
Mm-hmm.
be implemented, like you were saying with you have to have a booking calendar. You have to have a way that people can schedule time with you, and you want to make that super super easy. And then with that comes a bunch of other things that you want to think through in terms of, you don't want to overwhelm yourself with, people just freewheeling booking on their calendar. So you have to have things in place that can, filter that out, add some friction there. So, you're pre-qualifying people before
Mm-hmm.
they book, things like that. Those are all types of things that we've
Mm-hmm.
implemented to great success. And so, you know, that part, and then how they're able to communicate with you and connect with you. We're finding the, text messaging, especially
Mm-hmm.
with the younger generation who grew up on that have businesses, they want to be able to text,
Mm-hmm.
their advisors or service providers. And, there's a whole way of implementing that's gives them the process that's what they need, but also protects the firm owners and uh, the ones that are working with the firms to not be available 24/7. You know what I mean? You got the
Yep.
dog barking over there, Janelle.
Yeah, I know.
Huh?
Edit that out.
Yeah. No, that's all right. It's all good. Like
Yeah,
what?
it's pretty authentic, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's telling on me the Amazon guy probably just dropped something off. That
Okay.
happens
Well.
once in a while
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. That's
Maybe
all
daily,
right.
maybe not.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, listen, when you have
yeah.
four dogs, you know what I
I
mean?
know I'm crazy. I'm the crazy dog lady for sure.
Yeah.
um, so you know what? This I speaking with of the number one, I want to bring up one more word because I always tell accountants that we work with to speak in layman's terms. Talk to me as if I'm in kindergarten or fifth grade, whatever.
Yeah.
We keep using this word that I want to talk about for a second called friction. And I think that tends to be more of like a salesy term. So I just want to make sure that we kind of explain what we mean by that. And what we mean by that is what friction is when there's resistance in the process and it makes it hard for someone to want to engage with you. And when I say engage, that means start it at point one in your sales process, which is that conversation. And if there are barriers there and people don't feel like they're going to hear back from you in a timely manner because they have to fill out a form and wait for you to respond, or if they feel like they have to jump through too many hoops, they're just going to move on because there are a lot of accountants out there, right? They're on every street corner, just like marketers are, right? So that kind of, we can get into differentiation and all that in a whole other conversation. But what we really have to focus on first is removing those friction points. But then to your point, we also don't want to open the floodgates and inundate a calendar. So we actually have some clients that I think do a very good job of putting together their own form that they require prospects to fill out that really qualifies them before the firm's willing to sit down and have a meeting with them. And I applaud that because that's basically saying I'm not taking everybody who comes through my doors. I know who my ideal client is, and I'm going to make this a very low friction process. But I'm also going to make sure that I'm not going to waste my time and I'm not going to waste your time, Mr. Prospect, either. And I love that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really, really important part of what these accounting firms, what you need to offer or provide on your website. And there's a couple of things I wanted to say about it was, friction. It's a funny thing because you probably learn that you want to have as little friction as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes friction is good because you know you you have to have this. There's an exchange, right? So you're going to offer this free consultation, let's say, and you're providing super, super valuable advice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, it's also part of the sales process because you have to take the time to learn about the business and, how you can help. But there's an exchange there, right? Like you know, they're giving up, filling out a form, taking 5 minutes or 10 minutes or however long it takes to fill it out thoughtfully so that you have the information that you need to be able to, you know, do your work. And um, there's got to be a reward at the end for the prospect to take that time. And so it's really important to communicate what that exchange is, and you have to do it in a medium that is, words and pictures and video. We really recommend video because
Mm-hmm.
you're able to say, hey, this is who you get to speak with. I'm the one that knows all about this. I can help you. All I'm asking for you is, so that we can have, you know, the best use of our time together is just fill out this form. And, so that kind of process, there's a lot of thought that goes into it, and it's different for each business. But there is kind of like a template to that once you go through that process and think about it and you present it, it makes a lot of sense. And so that's a really critical piece because that, you know, just in doing that just kind of shows you like the whole medium is the message thing where, you know, you're showing your expertise just by putting that out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you're also protecting yourself, like we were saying with the calendar, and not overwhelming your systems there. So the
Mm-hmm.
other thing too, though, about the friction is that depending on how in demand your time is, you could have more and more friction, if that makes sense, right? So
Yeah.
like if you have something that's going to save their life, let's say, they'll
Mm-hmm.
fill out a form for 12 hours just so they have that opportunity to work with you. So
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes you know it's counterintuitive. Like you always think, oh, I don't want a lot of friction, but it could be where if you add enough friction, it works in, like I said, in a counterintuitive way where, you know, there's that investment and there's that payoff and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
there's a fine line there, but it's not always, oh, I want to just, have
Exactly.
as little friction as possible.
Yeah, that's such a good point that you bring up. Super, super important. It's kind of like directly proportional. The amount of friction you want to have in your process is directly proportional to, your time essentially and the value of your time. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
so you brought up something else I just want to touch on before we wrap up too,
Mhm.
that I can't underscore this enough. And that is the word video. um, so many accountants are terrified to get behind a camera. I get it. I don't like getting behind a camera, right? The more you do it, the easier it gets. Um, but the reason it's so incredibly important if you're an accountant is you're all competing for the same business, right? The same, you all want small business owners, right? And some of you have niches that are certain types of businesses, which is great. The more you niche down, the better. And that's a whole other conversation. But when people are either referred to you or they find you on Google or they meet you somehow, some way, end up on your website, they need to be able to see you and meet you. And I don't mean in a live setting, they need to see a video. It could be a 30-second, a 60-second video where you're just giving an overview, and don't make it all about you too, right? So make it more about them. Talk about the fact that you can empathize with common pain points or problems that someone has. I think it's really, really important to have video somewhere on your website or at your, point of entry into that sales process, because once someone sees that, they feel like they've met you and they feel like they either gel or they don't gel with your personality. And sometimes that can be the kicker, like the thing that really pulls them into the process is seeing someone who's authentic. I'm not talking about you've got to be all perfectly coiffed and dressed up and all this good stuff. People want to deal with real people, and they want to
Mhm.
see that their accountant has this personality and that they're not afraid to get behind the camera, and that, they're casual and they're normal just like them, and they make mistakes with their words and things like that. So it doesn't have to be perfect. They just want to see that person and hear them, to connect with them.
Absolutely. I think that's critical. And just even like myself, like I'm not really comfortable in front of the camera. I mean, I can do it, but like it's not my thing. And I'm kind of forcing myself to do it. And as far as like what to say and all that kind of stuff, you really want to just be natural. I mean, we can
Hmm.
certainly help, we help our clients and kind of like guide them into like what they need to say. But at the end of the day, really what's important is just giving people a chance to just know about you just as a person, right? Like it doesn't even really matter so much about like what you do necessarily, although that is super important, but it's more about, you know, just breaking the ice and just building a relationship for them to see
Hmm.
you and hear you and understand not so much what you say, but like where you're coming from. Like
Yep.
what, like what's your motivation, what's your mission, what are you trying to accomplish, what are your intentions, right?
Yep.
So that stuff is super, super important. And it doesn't have to be, it could be like a 20-second video, and it could just be you explaining why, uh, you need them to fill out that form, you know,
Yeah.
like as simple as that,
Yeah.
because, and telling them, hey, you know, just fill out this form. I'm going to take a look at it and I'm going to go over everything. And then I'll get back to you and, just give me 2 days or whatever, however long it takes you. And, that's what you can expect. And then
Mhm.
like, how long is it going to take you to do that? You don't have to get all dressed up and everything like that. And, you know, those little things, that authenticity, uh, travels very, very far. And it's
Mhm.
really, the key to everything is to keep it authentic as much as possible. And
Absolutely.
that's one way to do it. And it's so easy. You could just literally go on your phone, on your iPhone, and take hey, this is Brad here. I'm just doing a quick little thing. Just want to let you know, blah 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 blah, and that's it. And
Mhm.
and it's easy to post that onto a web page and use that for your benefit.
And people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. It's as simple as that. And
Yeah,
that's the best way to do it, digitally. Um,
right.
so before we wrap up, do you know what I'm super excited about?
No, tell me.
I am very excited that we have some upcoming episodes planned where we're doing something very unique. I haven't seen this done, so I want to just talk about it here for a second because I think it's exciting. Um, as you know, our listeners know, we deal exclusively with accountants. That's who we serve. That's who we get. That's who we love to work with. And all of our firms do business with business owners. So we thought it would be really fun to do several episodes upcoming. And who knows, I think it's probably just going to become a regular thing for us where we bring a business owner on each episode and we talk to them about what they want. And look, what do they think when I throw the word out there, CPA? Guarantee they're probably first thing you're going to say is tax. So I think what's really going to be interesting is to kind of explore through the business owner's eyes what's important in a business advisor, a bookkeeper, an accountant, because I think what this is going to do is really help our listeners understand the prospect better. And they have to be the center of the story. The role of the firm is just to get their hero of the story from point A to point B, or to be the guide, as Donald Miller would say, who's the author of Building a Story Brand. So, anyhow, I'm really excited
Yeah,
about that. It's gonna be fun to see what people think and what they think they need from their accountant.
right. But not only that, I think so. That's great, and I'm super excited as well. But not only finding out what you need from an accountant, but also why maybe you didn't choose another account. I want to find out like that experience. Like like what went wrong, like what's bad,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
so that you can avoid that or fix whatever's going on with your practice. For our clients so that they can, you know do as good as possible. So
I love it.
that's going to be. I think there's going to be so much insight that we're going to
Oh
gain
man,
from
I'm
that.
excited. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. We've got a couple good ones lined up too.
yeah.
So,
So
so stay tuned, and we appreciate everyone tuning in. And until next time, have a great day. Be productive. Understand that numbers don't lie, and that there's a lot of sales and marketing truth for accountants to go around.
that's right. And you don't have to be stuck in your situation, like especially if it's tech. There's people that can help you get unstuck.
Very true. Like us.
Yes,
Kajabra.com. Book an appointment.
check it out.
Thanks.